Johan, and I work for Midnight Hub, and we're here presenting our first game, Ridden.
Can change the laws of nature.
First of all, I know that your company is kind of like a mashup of different developers from Mojang and Paradox, things like that. How was it having a mashup of all these different developers working in one space?
I think it works very well. I think it's good, like, for every company that, like, the companies get out a little bit and, like, we try different constellations. And this one is working very well for us.
Is it a nice environment to work in?
Yeah, I think it works very well. It's easier when it's a small studio as well.
Yeah. So the first thing that I noticed about your game was how strikingly beautiful it is, which obviously is very important when you're making a walkthrough simulator, because it's all about the atmosphere that the player is thrust into when they're playing the game. It has been kind of related to games like Firewatch and Gone Home. How would you say that your game stands out in a sense?
I don't really like to call it walking simulator. I like to call it a slower adventure game. And we have a lot more puzzles than what you usually have in these sort of games, and challenges the player a little bit more. And the story that we're trying to tell is a mystery story as well, where we have all of these clues that the player can try to fit together for themselves before they actually reach the end. So it's not just following like the normal visual story that you usually see in this sort of walking simulator. It's more of a finding a lot of different clues and solving puzzles and progressing in that way.
Yes, and I did notice that myself when I was playing, because you definitely have to look at everything to really progress in the game, which is nice as well, because I noticed there was a lot that you could do within the game that you didn't really have to do. I mean, there's a lot of lights that you can turn on and loads of really intricate details that you can look at just for the sake of looking at it. So is there any reason for adding all that into the game?
So when it comes to the lights, other than the fact that it's extremely fun to just turn it on, it's a really good way for players to feel like they're making an impact in the world. Often worlds are very static because you don't have that many things. You probably also noticed you had toys that you could pick up and drop in other places.
Yeah.
So we want this sort of small pieces of persistency for the player, oh, I left that gate open, so now it's open when I come back. Those sort of small parts. And with the lights, it's also it just looks beautiful when you light them. So it's very rewarding as well for the player.
Yes, I found that as well, because it's quite a dark game. So it can be quite difficult to see what's around, and then when you realise, oh, that's a light right there, and then the whole place gets illuminated. And even just the small things, you had a cluster of candles, and you just do one, and it didn't really make much difference with the lights, but as you were lighting them more, you could see everything around you. And then I noticed that there was a little wooden sword, which I liked a lot. Oh, it's a sword! I feel like a badass now. But yeah, so I think the atmosphere works very nicely. But one thing that I was wondering, on your website it says that it's a simulation horror game. Would you say that this was horror, or maybe a different version or different take on horror?
So it was more horror before. We found it a bit difficult to tell an intricate story inside a horror game, because everyone was going around waiting for things to jump out at them.
Yeah.
So instead we changed out the horror game mechanics toward even more adventuring and puzzle solving, and just to go around and finding clues. But the plot is still the same. It's still the same feeling, this really creepy, ominous as things are going to happen. And there is, of course, still an antagonist in the game, but we don't have any violence. We don't have any gore or anything like that. But the mystery that the player will unravel is very, very dark in itself as well. So it's both. It's a horror themed adventure game.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's more about having them feel the anticipation and the tense emotions that you get throughout horror without having a cheap jump scare at the end of it.
Yeah, precisely. And we want people to be able to play the game very slowly. As I'm sure you noticed when you were playing it, we work really hard to try to slow the player down, because in adventure games we're used to playing them very, very quickly and like to jump around and all of that sort of thing, and which you can do, but we're really trying to get people not to.
You've said that it's not horror anymore, it's just more themes of horror. And but on your website it said that you wanted to kind of widen the definition of a horror game.
Yeah.
Is that still kind of something that you're striving towards?
Yeah, so horror games right now are like very gory and that sort of thing. So we really want to make like high tension games with like dark themes, but that doesn't go like in the gore direction, which is very, very common now for horror games.
Yeah, it's very true. So it's more about being inside someone's mind and making them really be immersed in the narrative.
Yeah, and our game is, so there is like supernatural powers, but it's not necessarily like the regular occult thing that you usually find in horror games. Like there's no Cthulhu references or things of that nature.
Yeah. Can you expand a bit more about what you mean by supernatural? What's supernatural about this game? Because when I first saw a trailer of it, I just thought it was going to be, you know, someone lost in the woods. But then I read supernatural. I was like, oh, there's a bit more to this game than I realized.
Yeah, so there is magic in this game. There is like forces of nature, and we do have at least one character that's a ghost. And I guess the people will get to see what other sort of magical things they will encounter. The game is not only about magic though, there's also a lot of mechanical puzzles, as you saw as well when you were playing the game.
Yeah. Yes, it was a very interesting, and it's very subtle. I think that's what I liked about it. Everything about the game was very subtle. So you think of supernatural and you think that everything's going to be flying everywhere, but yeah, I love the subtlety of it all. So well done for that. So in your opinion, I know you mentioned it just there, how people kind of usually run around adventure games and everything's very fast paced. Why do you think that it's important to make games like this that actually require the player to slow down their pace and look around the environment around them? Why? Okay. Why do you feel like it's important to kind of make these games that slow down the process?
I don't think it's necessarily important, but I think it's a fun way to experience the story. Especially when we try it here at EGX, where everyone is like, they've tried all these fast-pacing games around us, and then they sit down next to our games, and it's just slow down. And it's, I think it's very powerful. And I think that also, like, it makes it easier to do a lot of like visual storytelling and doing like all of that, having like taking in different parts of the character and things of that, things of that nature.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I can see myself losing hours to that game and not even realizing. So I think you did that very well. So it's out next spring, am I right?
Spring 2018, yes. Definitely on PC. We're hoping to release it on console as well.
That's great. So there is a possibility of console being released, I'm guessing after the PC release.
I'm hoping for the same time.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Because I'm studying games development at the moment in my third year, I want to ask every developer that I interview, if you could give someone who wants to be in the games industry just one piece of advice, what piece of advice would that be?
I think it depends on which part of the gaming industry you want to be in. Programming?
So programming, yeah.
I don't know. Oh, that also depends on if you want to be an engine programmer or a game programmer.
Oh man!
Yeah, because it's a little bit different. I just think that you should just like try making games. It's simple
just
as that.
It.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. Like just try making different games and see what challenges arose and how to overcome them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
You can find more information about Lake Ridden if you go to lakeridden.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Midnight Hub. And we just added a Steam page for Lake Ridden as well, where you'll be able to wishlist it and see our story trailer and find even more information about the game.
That's great. Thank you. That's so perfect. It's a great interview. I'm very excited to see more about this game, honestly. Yeah. I love games like this.
Glad you liked it.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, beautiful game. Wait, can I ask what engine did you use actually?
We're using Unity.
Okay, that's what I'm learning, and so I'm just asking everyone because there's that Unreal Unity divide.